channel that is coming. And at the back there, where those white is another channel, all the way from the Kota River. So there are two outlets that you're seeing here that are going to discharge onto the lagoon, and we believe these two solutions will significantly relieve some of the pressures we are seeing, even from the other side, all the way from Ochi, Mega Mode, all the way from Oshakpa, London. This is where you see the exit onto the lagoon. Can I go? No. You can see the exit up until the lagoon. So, thankfully, the work is going. You can see the boogies, you can see all of them working. You know, it's really around ensuring that we can completely bring a lasting solution to our residents in the entire neighborhood. There's still a lot of work to be done. We're going to build, you know, a deck compart, which is like a bridge, you know, on that side further down. And to access all this land, there's also going to be another deck compart, so that underneath you have this place is permanently flooded for future, you know, challenges all around this place.
For residents, the flood in livelihoods, while many blame poor drainage and unchecked development, others pointed to an overflowing canal they say.
We've been having problem with this canal for that past few years, but the way the thing is going every year is terrible. There was even a year that we had to bring canoe to fly here for children to go to school, because most times it used to be third term section for children to go to school and finish up their exams. It's very terrible.
How the wellness visits say the and intervention.
What you want me to do now is to remove this water and do the road from Adesanya down to Kobaron about. Channel they got aware, and most of the things, all those canals, some people they feel and they build house on top. Water cannot go there anymore. We don't want all those things to feel canal build house on top.
We are calling on the government to help us solve this situation, because it's not easy. No buses cannot go inside. We have to trek all the way down there.
We know we cannot control water generally, but at least water should flow. When water flows, it will move to the canal, and people in the residence area will be able to live their lives freely.
The governor's visit has also drawn commendation from the majority leader of the Lagos State House of Assembly, who expressed confidence in the state's intervention.
You agree with me that you've seen a lot of videos circulating around showing the flooded areas in Etiosa, like areas of Ajuno that we are here right now today in Ajuno, and we have in Astri, we have in Ologolo, we have in Alpha Beach, and we have in Ogombo, we have in Lekki Garden. So many areas in Etiosa have been flooded. And we cry to our governor, and we cry to the Lagos State government. I want to thank the governor of Lagos State for listening to the cry of the people of Etiosa, for coming to the aid of the people of Etiosa, for coming himself personally to assess the flood that is going on. In fact, the governor not only assess alone, he has to put his leg inside the water. It shows that he's a man of the people. It shows that he cares about the people of Lagos State. So once again, on behalf of the people of Etiosa Constituency 1, so since they are here today, we'll be expecting positive changes in the flood. They have come to look at the temporary solutions, and they have also talked about the permanent solutions. Those both will be addressed. The temporary and the permanent solutions will be addressed by the governor.
It's appealed to residents to keep drainage channels free of refuse, stressing that while it will continue expanding drainage infrastructure and restoring natural waterways, lasting flood control will depend on shared commitment to protecting the environment. Welcome. The visit to Etiosa wasn't just about assessing the damage. It was also an opportunity for Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu to outline what the state says it will do differently, from reviewing the master plans of the flood-prone communities to restoring natural drainage systems. Now, whether those interventions deliver the lasting relief residents are hoping for will become clearer with time. As those efforts continue, the governor has also unveiled a new photographic publication reflecting on some of the defining moments of his administration over the past years. Let's take a closer look.
Sometimes history is written in words. Other times it is captured through a camera lens. Lagos State's Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, against all odds, is more than a collection of photographs. It is a visual record of an administration shaped by some of the state's most defining moments. Authored by the governor's official photographer Ademola Olaniran, the publication chronicles events from Sanwo-Olu's first term and the early years of his second, documenting the COVID-19 pandemic, the EndSARS protests, the Abule Edo explosion, infrastructure development, and key government interventions.
When our young people cried out against police brutality, we chose to listen rather than to lecture. I stood with them on the toll gate. We carried their demands to Abuja that very day. We sat with the injured in hospital wards at night. We empaneled an independent inquiry. We published its findings. We made restitutions to victims, and we set about rebuilding not only the terminals and the courthouses that were burned, but far more precious convenient things that was important to every Lagosian, young and old. And when the grief visited us in fire and in collapse and the losses, we mourned with our people, and then we went back. We went back to work, because Lagos, mourning and building are not opposite. They are how the city survives.
Reflecting on his years in office, the governor describes his first term as one defined by successive emergencies that tested both government institutions and the resilience of Lagos residents. Despite those challenges, he says the state remained focused on delivering major infrastructure projects, expanding social services, and sustaining economic growth. Among the achievements highlighted were the completion of the blue and red rail lines, the commencement of operations at the Lekki Deep Sea Port, investments in housing, healthcare, and education, as well as initiatives aimed at improving food security and preserving the state's cultural heritage.
The volume our first term, which is from 2019 to 2023. The years are first storm, and I'm reliably assured that the second volume will come before the end of our second tenure. So, cabinet members, don't give up on yourself. Continue to push harder, continue to work harder, continue to ensure that all of these promises that we've given Lagosians will not stop. We have promised Lagosians that we'll work twice as hard, we'll work twice as smart, we'll work twice as better than we started. And we're going to hit the finish line with every strength, with every fiber that we have.
For the Lagos State, Obafemi Hamzat, the publication serves as more than a photographic archive. He says it preserves the human stories behind governance and the impact of public policy on everyday lives.
In my view, this book, Against All Odds, is not just a title. It is a testimony to the courage, discipline, and focus that have characterized Governor Sanwo-Olu's journey in public service, especially what happened in the first 4 years with COVID, with EndSARS, and all sorts. So I'm proud to say that I was part of that journey. It is an attestation to the popular saying that a picture is worth more than 1,000 words.
Sanwo-Olu eventually emerged on 2 October 2018 as the winner of the APC governorship primaries with 970,851 votes, leaving the incumbent, Governor Akinwumi Ambode, with 72,901 votes. Still, the rancor within the rank and file of APC and the crisis of confidence among some sections of the electorate persisted. Groups. APC then presented a formidable front that roundly beat Mr. Jimmy Adaje of the People's Democratic Party at the poll on 9 March 2019 after an intense campaign. There are pictures in this book of party leaders campaigning and marketing the candidates and talking to people about the programs of APC. These programs were grounded in Greater Lagos agenda called Teams Plus, support for transportation, traffic management, technology, tourism, transparency in finance, healthcare, housing, environment, education, economy, entertainment, and security. That vigorous campaign culminated in power and glory on 29 May 2019 as Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and his deputy, Dr. Bafemi Hamzat, were sworn in. They were less than 10 months in office when coronavirus disease COVID-19, which killing hundreds of people in China, United Kingdom, United States, and elsewhere, sneaked into Lagos like a thief in the night on 27 February 2020. An Italian who flew into the city from Milan. That created moments of panic in Nigeria. The long history of humanity, viruses have killed more people than wars. Those who are conscious of this fact were full of anxiety as that plague hit, leaving the world perplexed, mortally afraid and disillusioned by the spate of death. Lagos was ready to wage a well-planned battle against that infectious disease. The governor and his team had set up what they call the Lagos State Incident Command Structure, ICS, which moved rapidly to counter the spread of the disease. Regarding this invasion as war, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu took charge as the Lagos Incident Commander. His battle-ready second-in-command was Professor Akin Abayomi, the Commissioner for Health. Their war cabinet and all the foot soldiers worked tirelessly to contain this arithmetic of death. Lockdowns were imposed. Like everyone else in the world, Lagosians were asked to wear face masks, observe physical distancing protocols, regular restrictions remain painful, but they had to be imposed. So many people had to work remote. Testing was increased. The diagnosis was made easy.
For the author, Ademola Laniran, the project was conceived as a visual testimony to leadership during extraordinary times. The book, he explains, was produced by a team of 11 professionals who spent years documenting the administration's activities across Lagos.
A photograph cannot invent character nor manufacture legacy. It can only bear witness. And what I witnessed for 7 years as a fly on the wall was a man whose hands power felt safe, who holds it just lightly enough not to choke it, not let it slip, yet commands it fully when it mattered the most. A man who cares for the common man, and above all, a decent man.
The launch drew a cross-section of political leaders from across the country, including representatives of the National Assembly, governors, members of the diplomatic corps, business leaders, and traditional rulers. The leaders commended Governor Sanwo-Olu's handling of some of the state's most challenging moments and described the publication as an important visual record of governance and development in Lagos.
For whatever one's politics is, we can surely agree on this. It is a far easier thing to comment on the work than to do it. To govern a city of 20 million people is no tax for the faint heart. And the title chosen for this collection against all odds is not a mere title. Those of us in public life know the odds are real.
While history will ultimately judge the impact of the policies documented in its pages, against all odds,
Whether it's responding to challenges of today or reflecting on the journey so far, what ultimately matters is the impact those decisions have on the lives of ordinary Lagosians, and that's a conversation we'll continue to follow. I remain your host, Victoria Conde. Thank you so much for watching Lagos Voices. See you next time.
La vie est impossible sans musique, parce que la musique rapproche les gens et leur apporte un peu de bonheur. Assez jeune, parce que j'adorais ma sœur. Ma sœur était une grande pianiste classique. Elle avait été déportée en 1943 et je pensais tout le temps à elle. Et comme je pensais tout le temps à elle, je me suis mis au piano et je suis devenu pianiste de jazz. Le jazz, pour moi, après la guerre, a été vraiment un facteur d'équilibre et d'intégration dans la société. Parce que ma mère a été déportée aussi. Et mon père est mort désespéré en 1945. J'étais tout seul. Et moi-même, vous savez, j'étais déporté aussi quand j'avais 11 ans. Et par miracle, j'ai sauté du train du 20e convoi. Pendant 60 ans, j'ai presque jamais parlé de tout ce qui m'est arrivé. Et puis au bout de 60 ans, on est venu me dire que je devais témoigner, écrire un livre. J'ai écrit un livre. Et depuis lors, ce livre ne m'a pas changé, mais il a changé ma vie. Et je vais maintenant beaucoup dans les écoles, par exemple, en Belgique et ailleurs, dans d'autres pays. Et je parle aux jeunes et je leur dis que pour défendre notre liberté d'aujourd'hui, notre démocratie d'aujourd'hui, il faut connaître les malheurs et la barbarie d'hier. Et je leur dis que la vie est belle aux jeunes, mais que c'est un combat permanent. Lors de la première pandémie, au premier confinement, tout le monde était malheureux, était enfermé. Et ce jour-là, ma fille me dit, « Papa, ouvre la fenêtre et joue du piano pour les voisins. » Au début, je n'osais pas, parce que je suis timide. Mais J'ai ouvert la fenêtre, il n'y avait personne dans la rue. Alors j'ai commencé à jouer un morceau. Mon morceau, le premier, ça On est sunny side. Je vois plein de monde devant ma... Si il y a de nouveau un confinement par malheur, je vais rejouer pour les gens.
Nigeria will be impartially governed according to the rule of law. We shall defend the nation from terror. We shall remodel our economy. The first subsidy is gone. The central bank must work towards a unified exchange rate.
It's been 2 years now since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made those solemn, far-reaching pledges when he was sworn in as the 16th president of Nigeria on May 29, 2023. Halfway through his 4-year term of office, President Tinubu has taken office, now placing Nigeria of rule.
I speak as a member of the Presidential Care Coordinating Council, and I speak as someone who, time to time, is opportune to have some conversations with the President. His ruthless commitment and desire to see a transformed Nigeria is unrivaled.
I've known Mr. President now for almost 32, 33 years. He's somebody who likes to take bold step and bold move. Leader. This structural reforms which Mr. President did, really you must give him credit. Even his own enemy will give him credit, because removing total subsidy, making it an open market, for Nigerians to pay the market rates. So doing the exchange rate on top of that exchange rate, also doing the removal of subsidy to some of us in the high class in terms of electricity consumption, because 41% increase wasn't really a small thing. But all these have actually been absorbed by people without burning tires, without this, so it was actually accepted. And this has actually reduced the drain on government's resources. But on this one, really, I think Mr. President has actually done extremely very, very, very well. Because these were things that I thought they won't happen in our lifetime, but here we are.
Nigeria's economy was severely challenged when President Tinubu assumed office in May 2023. Revenue had fallen, and subsidy obligations.
When he came in, within a year, Nigeria moved out of the intensive units, moved away from that cliff, and is now in a recovery position.
The economy was practically on the brink. Our external reserve position, particularly the net external reserves, were so bad that it was so difficult for us to fund our foreign transactions. It was so bad that the letters of credit issued by Nigerian banks in most cases were not honored by our correspondent banks abroad. So that created a major crisis in our external position. Then we had a major crisis with our petroleum downstream sector. We were spending anywhere between $10 billion to $15 billion importing petroleum products. So that created a major fiscal crisis. And as a result of that, we had a regime of massive printing of currency. At the inception of the administration, I think there was a currency printing liability was about 3 trillion naira. That was by the administration. And that had very serious implications for our macroeconomic environment, for inflation, for deficit. And to make matters worse, the printing of money was done in a manner that was completely not transparent. So it was a very, very bad situation that required urgent resetting of the economy.
2 years on, and with bold and sometimes difficult economic policies, the economy is beginning to turn the corner. Government revenues have dramatically increased, just as revenue to debt service has also come down to around 68%. States and local governments now get more allocations than ever.
Able to push out economic growth that was the highest rate that Nigeria has seen in 10 years with what we did in 2024. And alongside that growth, we have seen other great indications. Reserves to $40 billion. Unencumbered reserve has grown by about $20 billion, which is from 3.99 to 23 billion dollars. Nigeria was able to pay its IMF debt, the one that was procured during COVID, $3.4 billion fully paid, leaving some items of interest rates and special drawing rights to be addressed. Even we have also paid down and of about $2 billion of Eurobonds that we paid in 2024. And the states in 2024 alone in 2024, the states paid down 32% of their total global loans.
Now I can tell you that as a member of the National Economic Council, for the past 9 months, NNPC has not brought any money to Federation account. We largely depend now on Federal Inland Revenue and Nigerian Customs and non-oil revenue as our major source of funds for Federation allocation and fiscal mobilization.
The current is unusual. They had with every year, so he came in day one, faced that head on, and then the issue of devaluation of the currency and floating it, ensuring that there is transparency and confidence built in the last few months.
Stability is fast returning to the foreign exchange market, and the country has just recorded a balance of payment surplus of $6.83 billion for the financial year 2024.
I would say that we are, in what you can call a stabilization phase of the economy. The kind of volatility that we experienced in the second half of 2023 up onto the second half of 2024, those volatilities are beginning to fizzle out. From the second half of 2024 up until now, we have witnessed a kind of normalization, especially in the macroeconomic environment.
Our Fitch ratings are up. The reforms in NNPC, the signing of the new Investment and Securities Act, several important pivotal reforms that globally and domestically, everyone can attest to the inflection point that is the Nigerian economy this year. Portfolio investment is up, FDI is also up. You know, we've been tracking his investment announcements from his presidential trips, over 30 of them, as at December 2024 was $50.8 billion. Our job is to make sure that those announcements translate into bankable investments that we see through. And so those discussions and dialogues have continued to be ongoing.
The revenue of government has gone up 60% in 2024 compared to previous year. And that's the federal level. At the state level, the revenues to the states has doubled. So these are signs of the improvements in government revenues as a result of the bold and courageous changes that were made that you mentioned.
The measures we have taken so far in terms of orthodox monetary policies, we can see have begun to yield fruit. They have begun to yield fruit. We can see that accretion to reserves have been consistent, and at one point in time, may I remind everybody that we achieved the highest level of reserves in the past 3 years at one point in time. We've also continued to see inflation gradually beginning to decelerate. We can see that there's greater confidence in our markets.
What has happened under the solid mineral sector in the past 2 years is unprecedented as a result of the deep-rooted reforms of the Tinubu administration. Virtually all the metrics in the sector have changed. Investments are pouring in. At the last count, the government has attracted over $800 million in new investments to the sector. Among the new investments is a $600 million lithium plant in Kaduna State and another $200 million refinery near Abuja and 2 additional processing plants in Nasarawa State.
We have a policy of local value addition, which is also part of our 7-point agenda. And the idea is that for so long as we could remember, even before we were born, our minerals have been adjudged raw materials and they've been extracted and exported to service the industries of developed societies. And so under the President Tinubu's Renewed Hope agenda, we say no more. Now, we do not approve licenses from applicants who do not show us concrete plans of local value addition, which means you must process locally.
Revenue to the sector has also quadrupled in just the last 1 year. In 2024, the sector generated over 35 billion naira, up from 6 billion in 2023. And this is despite receiving only 18% of its 29 billion naira budget.
We created the mining marshals, which has become very popular and very, very effective in Nigeria. Now, over almost 150 are undergoing prosecution across the states in the country, and we've secured over 9 convictions, including foreigners involved in this nefarious activity. And this has really helped us to send a strong message and signal to the operators in this sector that it's no longer business as usual.
Some of the tough but necessary economic reforms of the government have not come without some difficulties for Nigerians. But the government has responded positively to ameliorate the situation. It's increased the minimum wage to 70,000 naira. It's also established the consumer corporation with a provision of over 200 billion naira to make consumer credit more accessible.
Hitherto, Nigerians, especially the working class, find it extremely difficult to get money to buy cars, to build houses. Should worry himself because he wants to get some essentials of life, and so Credit Corp was established, and it's gladdening to note that it has done so well. So many Nigerians have been able to access that.
Another strategy to ease some of the fallouts of the economic reforms is the presidential CNG initiative launched by President Tinubu in October 2023 to facilitate the adoption of natural gas, a cheaper alternative fuel following the removal of petrol subsidy. Since its official in May 2024, thousands of Nigerians and even government agencies have embraced the program, making the switch to CNG.
We've attracted $491 million of investment to auto CNG, which has created 9,000 direct jobs and 75,000 indirect ones. To this end, the Nigerian conversion capacity of vehicles from pure petrol and diesel to turn them to biofuel vehicles was also raised by almost 3,000%, with more than 200 centers established in this past year.
In addition to the CNG program, the government has rolled out and supported several other initiatives to
sacrifice in the reform process. So there should be a way to ensure that the benefits of the reform trickle down better to the ordinary citizens. In other words, we need to democratize the benefits of the reform, because the citizens are still worried about the cost of living, especially the cost of basic things like food, the cost of transportation, the cost of health care, the cost of education. Those things are still big issues. So going forward, we want to see more impact, more efforts, deliberate efforts to ensure that the cost of living is reduced, so that we can reform process a lot more inclusive.
Determined to ensure every Nigerian who desires tertiary education is not in any way hindered by funds, the government launched one of the most consequential education initiatives in the history of the country. The Nigeria Education Loan Fund, NELFund for short, provides interest-free loans to students in tertiary institutions who desire the loan to enable them pay their fees and for upkeep. Beneficiaries of the interest-free loan are only expected to start paying back 2 years after they secure jobs upon graduation. The government has made available over 200 billion naira for the takeoff of the initiative.
This scheme was designed and introduced by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, whose vision it is to ensure that everybody has access to education at tertiary level, have the hope that they can rise to the highest heights without having to worry about funds. So we've disbursed in institution fees somewhere in the region of 30 billion naira. For the upkeep, we've disbursed 24 billion naira. So we have disbursed a total of 54 billion naira, and by our numbers, 293,000. So just short of 300,000 students have directly benefited, have directly received or should have received value from our disbursement.
The initiative is helping many young Nigerians achieve their dream of getting tertiary education, as funding is now no longer a barrier.
Today, no child can be denied access to higher education because he comes from a poor family. He wasn't born to wealth and privilege. Some countries in Africa have visited Nigeria to learn the mechanics of this program. It's a landmark program.
The passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill in 2021 set the stage for a revolution in Nigeria's oil and gas industry. That revolution is now beginning to happen under the watch of President Bola Tinubu.
Before this government came, and it's very fundamental, there were a lot of, companies that were divested. And as they were divesting, divestments were frustrated. But when this government came, we went around the world campaigning that come and invest in Nigeria. And the question was asked, the companies in Nigeria couldn't divest, so how can I bring my money to invest? If tomorrow I want to divest, how do I divest? And we told them that, look, this is the new government with a new direction. And so we have been able to successfully, allow the divestments. So the president, graciously approved the divestments. And today, Nigeria's story has changed. And Nigeria is a country that you can bring your capex to invest and also divest as well.
For someone who has this experience, to see today an administration that allowed the Seplat Exxon transaction to go through successfully, I commend it. It's not me, Tony Miller or Ezodin's group buying it. It's others, but I commend it. Those are the signaling effect people want to see, investors want to see, that brings them to invest in the country. And by the way, not just investors come to invest, financial, because we need capital. Those who will release that capital want to make sure that where the capital is going to is conducive. So when you approve Seplat Exxon Transit that has been on the table since life started, it is telling a signal. You don't need any CNN advertisement.
Investors are now showing renewed interest in Nigeria's oil and gas sector. In December 2023, French energy giant Total Energies committed to invest $6 billion in the country's oil and gas industry. Other IOCs like Shell and ExxonMobil have also demonstrated similar commitments in the region of $13 billion.
There are investments that are running into tens of billions of dollars. There's also another investment that is coming that is about $20 billion, but it's good for it to come. It's announced, when it is right, but we are very close. I believe that within a very short period, that announcement will be made.
The country's refineries are now coming back on stream. Together with the privately owned Dangote refinery and other modular refineries, they've helped to cut Nigeria's petrol import by around 50%. It's now only a matter of time before the country completely ends petrol import and safeguards foreign exchange.
Within no short period of time, we will have 1.2 million barrels of refining capacity. What that does is, of course, it makes us self-sufficient in petroleum products. It gives us the ability to export petroleum products efficiently, formally, legally, and profitably. Along with that refining capacity comes the production of industrial raw materials from the adjoining and companies.
Together with civilian contractors, we've been able to, reduce the oil theft, and that is why you see the increment that we've made, over the last 2 years. But we will continue to improve on what we have been able to achieve.
On security, I speak as a significant investor in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria. Our group, as Energies, we are the third biggest producer of oil in Nigeria today. We produce over 50,000 barrels of oil on a daily basis. In December 2021, I tweeted and I cried out because we will produce, and what we'll get at the end, when we put in the pipeline, we'll get 3% of total production. And so we cried out and we shut down. We said it's totally unsustainable. We are working for thieves on the country. And that is the manifestation of insecurity. Now, fast forward to December 2024. Our recovery is 100%. What you put in the pipeline, you get at the other end. That's totally impressive.
At inception, the Bola Tinubu administration had inherited a total of 2,604 projects in the Ministry of Works from the previous administration, totaling 13 trillion naira. The figure would rise to 19 trillion naira following the removal of petrol subsidy and floating of the naira.
So the president, in fact, and of course the Federal Executive Council, directed that we should do prioritization. So out of these 2,604, we selected about 404 projects, major projects, reviewed them, and they are all ongoing. And then the new projects of Mr. President under this administration is about 65. And of course, this 65, excludes the 4 legacy projects of Mr. President.
The 4 legacy projects are ambitious, gigantic, and transformative road projects. They're unprecedented in the history of the country and link the entire nation. And this is one of them. The 750-kilometer Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, which will run from Victoria Island in Lagos, southwest Nigeria, to Calabar in Cross River State in the south of the country. Work has since begun on the project, and its first phase, which is approximately 30 kilometers, will be commissioned in May.
Incidentally, it has two spurs. The first spur is, it was supposed to be Sokoto, Badagry, Sokoto, as, envisaged by the Shagari administration, about 45 years back. But the president, changed it to Sokoto, Badagry, 1,068 kilometers. Intention is that the Sokoto, Badagry should start from Sokoto and Kebbi. And as we talk today, we have 258 kilometers by one carriageway going on at Kebbi section, and we have 120 kilometers, going on in Sokoto section. We are about to procure the second carriageway of 258 in Kebbi and 250 and the 120 in Sokoto. But this is a spur, of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. So the Lagos-Calabar Highway is 750 kilometers of route. Of course, it runs through, Lagos, to Ogun, to Ondo, to Edo Delta, Bayelsa, Port Harcourt, Akwa Ibom, and the ending at Cross River. And when it ends at Cross River, the axis of Cross River now starts from there to the third legacy project of Mr. Trans-Sahara, route, which is 462 kilometers. And it connects from the, Calabar end, going through Calabar to Ebonyi, to Enugu, to Benue, to Kogi, to Nasarawa. And then it connects the fourth legacy project of Mr. President, which is 408 kilometers, which starts, Akwanga. If you look at the just concluded project of, Kefi to Makurdi, which is being told now, then from that Akwanga section, it gets to Jos. And from Jos, it gets to Bauchi, it gets to Gombe. So the entire four legacy project of Mr. President, if you look at the loop, it's all connecting the six geopolitical zone.
While work is ongoing with the legacy projects, inherited major projects are also receiving equal attention. Among them is a 700-kilometer Abuja-Kaduna-Kano highway.
I think Nigeria never had it, this good. And I want to say, with all sense of responsibility, that before now, past governments have been building roads, but today, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is constructing roads, because we are constructing roads that will last from 50 to 100 years. And the problem we've had in our road construction has been, poor design, poor construction, poor method of construction, and then lack of commitment on the side of all partners, getting things done. But it is no longer business as usual.
Across the six geopolitical zones, road projects are...
I'm happy with his engagement in this legacy project, because foreign money is coming in at as low as 2.5%, So this legacy project has 30%, Naira funding, and then 70%, loan component. When a nation borrows to do infrastructure, that is the right borrowing. And I tell you something, these legacy projects are not just road projects, they're investment. By December, we would have finished section 1 of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. Apart from the inherent benefits, we're also going to recover our money, return on investment under 10 years. We're going to be tolling it, So when we borrow to invest, we will recover the money we borrowed, we'll be able to pay back, and we also, it becomes also part of the, the wealth of the nation.
Issue of transportation, especially with the removal of subsidy, we must look at a cheaper way of transportation, and the railway system is the very cheap system of transportation. And he continued with what the previous government started, the railway system from Lagos to Ibadan, from Ibadan to Kaduna, from Kaduna to Kano, Kano to Daura, Daura to Katsina, Katsina to Maradi, Maradi to Jibia in Niger Republic. That project has continued. Work is going on now, and the AKK, Ajakuta, Kaduna, Kano gas pipeline, which is absolutely necessary for the industrial development, especially in those industrial cities like Kaduna, Kano. You see, that work is going on.
To address the housing challenge confronting the country, President Bola Tinubu, on assuming office, launched the Renewed Hope City and Estate Housing Initiative with a plan to build 100,000 housing units over a period of 3 years. That plan is now fully on course. Thousands of homes are currently being built across different states. The first set of houses will soon be handed over to successful. Nigeria's perennial electricity challenge has for long defied every solution thrown at it. But after initiating some drastic reforms like the signing of the Electricity Act Amendment Bill 2024 and making huge investments, the government is gradually turning things around.
On 2nd of March 2025, Nigeria reached a remarkable generation available capacity of 6,003, marking the first time this level had been recorded in the country's history. That is not enough. This achievement was followed by a peak generation evacuation of 5,801.44 megawatts on 4th of March 2025, which also saw an impressive daily energy output, the highest ever, 128,370.75 mega hours per day on that very day. We've always been in 118, 119,000 megawatts on a daily basis, but we achieved 128. That is the highest energy ever consumed in a day since power sector came to being in Nigeria, and we are proud to achieve this.
It took the country about 40 years to attain 4,000 megawatts of power, but with its reforms, this government has been able to add 1,700 megawatts to attain a peak generation of 5,800 megawatts in less than 2 years.
Now that we have created the trajectory, if we sustain this trajectory, I can assure you that before the end of this administration in 2027, the first 10 of this administration, 2027, we should be able to generate and distribute nothing less than 8,000 megawatts of power.
Investments are now coming into the electricity sector as a result of the reforms by the government. The electricity market. The government is also investing heavily in renewable energy to power communities across the country that are not connected to the national grid through the Rural Electrification Agency. While the electricity sector still faces a number of challenges, the reform in the sector is no doubt changing the narrative one step at a time. In the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, an infrastructure revolution is going on. The Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, and his team are bringing the president's ambitious aspirations of the capital to reality, one project at a time. In just 2 years, the number of projects executed and completed is mind-blowing, and they run across the entire FCT, covering both the city centers and satellite areas where many of the residents and indigenous people live.
The leadership Mr. President has shown is what can encourage us to take both decisions to zero. We can't continue to be business as usual. We must do things in different ways. But before that, it was difficult because that leadership was not provided. And you don't want to go and take a decision where you're embarrassed by appointment. Nobody does that. So now we are seeing that we have a leadership that's focused and said, hey, what's the result? It does not want excuses. It does not want, oh, you see, people did it. No. He has confidence in you. He believes you have what it takes to support him, to achieve what he has promised Nigerians. So when it's all this excuses that this happened, that didn't happen. So all we are for will stop last year. Last year, it took us about 12 days, 13 days of commission of projects. This year alone, it's taking us 19 good days of projects that will touch on the life of the people, those who reside in the city and those who reside in the satellite center. It has never happened.
The projects are fast changing the face of Abuja. New bus terminals have sprung up in the city. New roads and bridges have been built, and more are still under construction. Satellite towns are now being opened up as genuine development is reaching underserved communities in the FCT. One of the key sectors President Tinubu prioritized on coming into office is the health sector. It's partly what informed his decision to put Professor Mohamed Pate from the Global Vaccine Alliance Gavi and appointed him Nigeria's coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare. Almost 2 years on, and with the introduction of several reforms by the administration, Nigeria's once broken health system is now being fixed.
The investment that we have had in 2024 and here now in 2025 being planned for infrastructural upgrades. This country has never seen something like that. Let me give you an example. Cancer, which is a major issue that is emerging in our society. President approved for 6 major cancer infrastructural equipment upgrades in 2024 in February. World-class radiodiagnostic centers in collaboration with NSIA, for instance. There are 10 major radiodiagnostic centers that are being constructed right now. The subsidy that the federal government provided for dialysis, for instance, for kidney patients. Federal government bought 10,000 dialysis commodities through centers all across the geopolitical zones of Nigeria to make it cheaper for patients that are dialysis dependent, and accelerated renal transplant centers. Sokoto had its first renal kidney transplant. It's coming along. There are others that are looking at that. We're now beginning to think of liver transplant, open heart surgery. There are many of those infrastructural upgrades. So the kinds of things that you are hearing from abroad, or you have to go to Egypt or somewhere else to get them, are beginning to be feasible here. My goodness, orthopedics, a major cause of people traveling abroad. My own father had a domestic accident, had a major fracture in his mid-80s, but he was fixed within a week in a public hospital, and within 4 weeks he was already standing.
Anchored in the Nigeria Health Sector Renewal Investment Initiative, the reform in the health sector is fast transforming the country's health infrastructure, attracting over $3 billion in grants and investments. The government is investing massively to turn around the country's primary healthcare system. Existing primary healthcare centers are being upgraded. Over 8,000 new ones are now being built across the country.
So we set out to expand the primary healthcare system, to make it functional at level 2, to improve the level of functionality. So we embarked on increasing the functionality of 8,800 primary healthcare centers, extending them to 17,000 that are functional, so that Nigerians will have the retail points, working between federal government, states, local government, private sector, development partners to roll that in forward, to revitalize the basic healthcare provision fund. And in the last 2 years, we have had 6 out of the 11 ministerial oversight convenings of the basic healthcare provision fund that disperse resources to all the 36 states, to those thousands of primary healthcare centers that are called BHCPF facilities all across Nigeria, that receive on a quarterly basis disbursements for their fuel, for their running costs, for staff, for their health workers, for buying drugs and commodities for the patient that they see on the supply side. And with that, we're seeing of today 20 million contacts every quarter.
Beyond health infrastructure, the Tinubu administration is making healthcare easily accessible for all Nigerians. Today, pregnant women who require cesarean section can access the service for free at federal health facilities. Kidney patients can now get up to 80% subsidy on dialysis services at 11 federal hospitals across the country. And to address the manpower shortage in the health sector, the government has so far recruited over 2,000 doctors and nurses, as well as engaged 774 national health fellows across local government areas in the country. Over 600,000 health workers have also been retrained for better health services.
All in all, I think if you take the 2 years of this president's tenure is the midterm, I would say that we've turned around what was a very complex, underfunded, hyper-fragmented sector that underperformed relative to its peers to one that is being recognized in the continent and beyond the continent as one that is on a trajectory of much better performance and also is being touted as a leader.
Even though the president signed an executive order waiving import duty on health equipment, the government is also ramping up efforts on local pharmaceutical production.
By 2027, it's expected that 60% of health products, including personal care products, will be manufactured in Nigeria.
For over a decade, Nigeria has battled myriad of insecurity challenges, pushing the country to the brink. Learning from the challenges and successes of the previous administrations before it, and barring recent setbacks, the Tinubu administration is changing the narrative.
I think the most obvious thing is the commitment by the government. From the beginning, the president made very clear his commitment to address the security challenge, and this is manifested in different ways. First, in his renewed hope agenda, where he made security the second key priority, as it were. Then he also listed 8 elements that he put forward to address the national security challenge. Also, in terms of budgeting, we've seen a very steady increase, and in fact, an obvious increase in budgetary provision for the security sector. From what he inherited at about 1-point-something trillion to 3.6 trillion thereabout, which is the last budget, the 2025 budget. We've also seen his engagement with the security sector leadership. You recall that one of the first things he did after his swearing in on May 29, 2023, was to visit the Office of the National Security Advisor, and he also had with some of the security sector leadership. So that commitment, I think, it's unquestioned.
In just 2 years, the security reforms of the administration are bearing positive results. Terrorist attacks are declining. At some point, they've reached their lowest in over a decade. Terrorism-related deaths are also coming down. Attacks in the southeast have now been reduced by almost 75%.
The last 2 years have indeed in the fight against banditry. 11,250 hostages on record free. A decline. We started witnessing the decline in abduction. Decisive blows to top warlords. The Kachallas, Ali Kachalla, Boderi, Halidu Subugu, Dangote, Isu, Yellow, Damuna, Buhari, all of them have met their credo. Over 50 of such leaders were eliminated. Over 70 of their deputies, commanders, and hundreds of foot soldiers neutralized. In the Northeast, Mr. President, where it all started over 20 years ago, the Boko Haram, the jihadis, over 13,543 terrorists and criminals neutralized since we came in. Over 124,408 Boko Haram ISWAP fighters and family members surrendered. Over 11,118 weapons recovered and destroyed. 52,596 rounds of assorted ammunition recovered and destroyed just in Borno State. Southeast, a welcome development is that the sit-at-home orders is becoming more and more ineffective. Key IPOP ESN figures capture and neutralize many in the battlefield. Over 50 police stations and many police forces are back in business. Attacks on security forces significantly reduced. Social and economic activities are normalizing. This can be testified by anyone who will visit the Southeast today.
Insecurity still remains a challenge in Nigeria, but the Tinubu administration is tackling it head-on with a clear focus and determination.
We will invest more
in technology. We will take over all our forests. We must neutralize kidnapping, banditry, and terrorism. It was never like this before in Nigeria. But we will reverse the trend.
The aviation sector is not left out in the gradual transformation of the country as a result of the Tinubu administration's bold initiatives. Since he was appointed Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo has been leading the charge to transform the sector in line with the president's plan.
Through policy trusts, we have restored international and global confidence in the aviation ecosystem, especially in the global leasing world. We have brought back that confidence in the Nigerian ecosystem. And we have been able to do this, by instilling integrity in our system. And this was a fallout of our compliance, our strict compliance with the Cape Town Convention that we had been signatories to, but were very poor in adhering to the terms of that convention. And so it was public knowledge last year that we went ahead and took practical steps to comply with the tenets of the convention. We signed the practice direction in Nigeria, and then also rolled out the IDERA by the NCA. And these two actions by Nigeria catapulted Nigeria from 49.5% to 75.5% on the global compliance scale. And that officially is the highest in Africa. So as I speak with you, international leasers and financiers are back in Nigeria right now. And it's only a matter of time, not a long time, before Nigerians will feel the full impact in terms of newer aircrafts, in terms of lower prices, ticket prices, because it will lead to more competition, both on domestic, regional, and international routes.
The new international terminal in Lagos, built by the previous administration, is now fully operational. Plans are now underway for a complete remodeling of the old terminal. Several routes are now being opened for ease of connections across the continent and beyond. And some airlines that left Nigeria in the past are now back. Key bilateral air service agreements have been finalized, integrating Nigeria more deeply into the global aviation ecosystem, facilitating easier and more efficient air travel between Nigeria and other countries under mutual benefits.
We've been able to open up a number of routes again for our domestic airlines, and also to attract some other international airlines to ensure that traveling experience for Nigerians is enhanced, and Nigerians have more options on some of these international routes. And so, of course, you saw the return of Emirates, the return of Emirates to the Nigerian domestic international routes. The return of Emirates to Nigeria, and Nigerians are beginning to enjoy that hub now in Dubai in their international travel. But there are other routes that we have been able to attract to Nigeria. You know, the Italian route had been closed for decades. Air Italia stopped flying to Nigeria many years ago. We've been able to attract another, international airline, and today we have opened up the Italian route again. We have also opened up the Algiers, Abuja, and Douala route, Cameroonian route. Before, it was so funny that you could not even take a 1 hour flight to Cameroon. It was so funny. And when I came to office, I said, how could this happen? Just 1 hour to Cameroon. You have to fly to Addis Ababa first and maybe spend one night before you now connect from Addis Ababa to Cameroon. Or you fly to Togo first, because Togo has a small hub there. And then from Togo, you now come and you start flying all over Nigeria again. You'll be flying on top of Nigeria to go to Cameroon. That was how, odd it was in terms of connectivity. But today we have been able to attract that. And so
to Europe,
and Europe excluding UK and I think Ireland. Then we were able to move to UK now, and Ireland now. We've moved to America, we've moved to Asia and other part of Africa as well. So it means that a Nigerian does not need to go to the embassy to renew his passport. Another major thing that we're also doing is to also bring a bit of, to bring serious integrity to our passport. And what do we mean? What do I mean by that? I'll break it into 2 or 3. Number one, when this government came on board, Nigerian passport was not registered on the the ICAO PKI PKD, that's Public Key Infrastructure, Public Key Directory of ICAO. So it means that verification of Nigerian travel document was near impossible real time, in across all borders in the world, airports and whatever. So that's why when a Nigerian travels with a Nigerian passport, there's he has a more difficult chance of being attended to than a foreigner. But in this particular, under this administration for the first time, Nigerian travel document, the passport has been imported into the PKD ICAO directory. So Nigeria is now compliant. And I'll tell you that before this government came on board, we never had any, in fact, profiling at our border posts were basically subjective and never objective. Profiling wasn't based on the principle of objectivity. And you know that any decision that you make on the premise of subjectivity is likely going to be laden with errors. But this government came and we introduced what we call the API solution, which is the advanced passenger system in terms of our air borders. So such a way now that before any passenger comes into Nigeria, we have the opportunity of profiling such passengers and we can easily identify persons of interest.
Successes have also been recorded in the agriculture sector. The government is driving a massive mechanization process to boost food production and security. Thousands of tractors and other agricultural inputs have been deployed to help farmers not only farm on a large scale, but also rapidly improve their yields.
Mr. President has transformed agriculture from potential to performance. And is, like I said, driven by mechanization to market access, from inputs to export driven. Saudi Arabian minister came last year and he came and sought for 1 million tons of alfalfa and 1 million tons of soya and 200,000 tons of red meat. Today, we have already started that engagement, and that is a drive that was spearheaded by Mr. President when we all accompanied him to Saudi Arabia in November of 2023.
In its determination to combat food inflation, hundreds of thousands of hectares of land are being cultivated for wheat production across several states in the country. Over 100,000 farmers have so far been supported, and more agro-rangers are being deployed to provide security for farmers.
3 other programs that we have seen that has made an impact is the mechanization program of Mr. President. That is a wonderful legacy. We have, like I said, the GIP is also mechanization partly. And then the Greener Hope, which seeks to provide almost about 10,000 different implements from tractors to harrows and other agricultural equipment over a period of 10 years. And that will also seek to set up about 1,000 service centers across the nation, and also to develop 150,000 hectares of land across the federation, with 25,000 from each geopolitical zone. So over 6 and 25,000 makes 150,000. So those two, the Belarus tractors and John Deere, are procurement. The GIP and the Greener Hope are collaborative efforts. So we have already started receiving, right now in Abuja, we have almost 700 tractors on ground out of the 2,000 from the Belarus. And very soon, Mr. President is going to launch those tractors.
The First Lady, Remi Tinubu, has taken a very keen interest in the agriculture sector and has been very supportive of efforts to make Nigeria food secure. In her quest to attract young people to farming, she launched the Young Farmers Club Nigeria in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security as part of her pet project, Renewed Hope Initiative. The Young Farmers Club Nigeria aims to revive Nigeria's indigenous occupation of farming, create employment opportunities, diversify the economy, and ensure food security.
Agriculture has always been the backbone of our nation. From time past, we have tilled the land with our hands and hearts, to the present, where agriculture continues to be a crucial part of our daily lives and economy. It is clear that just an occupation. It is a way of life which can create employment opportunities for a teeming young population, help diversify the economy, and put food on our tables. As I reminisce, I remember the groundnut pyramids and cotton plantations in the north, palm oil cultivation in the east, cocoa and rubber plantations in the west and the southern part of Nigeria. I believe all of these can be resuscitated and scaled up with modern techniques and mechanization.
So far, many young people across the country have signed up to the initiative and beginning to take to farming. Gradually, misconceptions about farming among young people are changing. There have been so many positives for the country in the last 2 years. Indeed, some of the reforms have come with initial challenges, but they are now being overcome, and light is beginning to appear at the end of the tunnel.
A lot has happened in the last few years that's commendable. I'll call it, these 2 years have been the years of reform. Going forward now, the idea is to ensure that these reforms, the benefit of these reforms, really reach the people.
Let's do the hard work. And it will take time before the results become widely apparent, but we are seeing changes that are showing us that we are on the right track.
We have a unique opportunity under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration to compete with our contemporaries, our peers all over the world. You need home government support to compete, and we have it.
Nigeria is certainly on the rise. With the Renewed Hope agenda, the Tinubu administration is fixing Africa's most populous country and getting it to fire on all cylinders.
I met a friend on Facebook, a Zambian precisely, so we talked about migration, that's me coming over to Zambia for a good job. So I was into fumigation and clothes selling, mobile sales before I left. So when the thought came of relocating to Zambia, when I checked the economy of both countries, I found out that Zambia, though small, but their currency is quite better than Nigeria. Applied for visa, my visa was granted, I purchased my tickets, and then I left. I flew through Kenya Airline. That was on the 1st of June. I arrived Zambia on the 2nd. And then I called this my friend, and I told him I'm in Zambia. So where I was, he moved me to another lodge, a hotel. And that was where I was assaulted by him. He was even dragging my passport. He wanted to get my passport, my yellow fever vaccine card. But because I hid it very far, he couldn't get access to it. He tore my bag, went away with my BTA. It's $885, and then I didn't see him. He absconded. When he left, he didn't pay the hotel bills. He had gone with my money. I couldn't find my money in my luggage. So when I noticed that things were not what we actually planned, I had to become friends with a gardener boy in that hotel. So that previous night, I was asked to move out of the hotel because he didn't pay the bills. But I noticed that he and the receptionist were in good accordance. You know, so I tried asking the researcher, did that man tell you he was going to come back? He said no, and he's owing for a night, that I can't stay in that hotel. So they had to seize my luggage, you know, seize my properties. I had to look for where to sleep. So that fateful night, I slept in an abandoned vehicle where I was almost gang raped by 3 guys. You know, I had to start this Nigerian movie. I'm with HIV, I'm with this, I'm with that, you know. So you want to sleep with me and all that. So they made away with my travel documents, my return tickets and all that. They thought it was an envelope of money. So they went with it after tearing my jean and all that. But they couldn't have access to, because I started shouting. It was around 3 o'clock. Shouting, creating sin. So they, when you leave Nigeria, and like I lived, you know, but what I proposed wasn't what I got. It's trafficked, you know. So it's real. When you go, you come back, you're alive. You just say, God, I thank you, and you pick up the pieces of your life and start all over.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Joy Uchejem, standing in for Deji Badmosi. Now, a new policy introduced by the United States government is set to affect some Nigerians and other African nationals applying for business and tourist visas, with applicants potentially required to provide a refundable bond of up to $20,000 as a guarantee that they will leave the country at the expiration of their authorized stay. The move comes amid broader efforts by Washington to strengthen immigration controls, improve identity verification, and address concerns over visitors who remain in the U.S. beyond their approved period. The new visa bond program, which became permanent on August 3, 2026, follows a pilot phase introduced in 2025. Under the policy, U.S. consular officers will determine whether an applicant is required to pay a bond and settle the amount at $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000, depending on individual circumstances. U.S. officials say the refundable bond is designed to encourage visa holders to comply with immigration rules and return home after their authorized stay, rather than serve as a punitive measure. On the TV360, we're examining what this policy means for Nigerians seeking entry into the United States. I am now being joined by the Executive Director, Patriotic Citizen Initiatives, Osita Osemene. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Osita.
Thank you. Thank you, Joy.
All right, sir. Now, the U.S. says the refundable visa bond is meant to ensure visitors return home before their authorized stay expires. Based on your experience, do financial guarantees actually reduce visa overstays, or are the underlying causes of irregular migration far more complex?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Yeah, with the recent development by the U.S. government, for me, it's not new. It's something that have been existing. I recall May this year, I was to be in the U.S. for the International Migration Review Forum. Under the government of Nigeria, I was shortlisted to be one of the delegates, you know, and we applied for visa. You'll be surprised that I was denied the visa, even with the government intervention, government of Nigeria intervention. I was denied a visa because of the green passport. And, you know, the option that was given was that if I have an official passport or the diplomatic passport, I will be given a visa. Now, you will now begin to see that the measure the U.S. is taking now is not a new measure. It's something that has been existing for Nigerians and Africans at large. A lot of Africans were affected in that, you know, and coming up with this now is like they are trying to strengthen or increase the measures that they have put up before, because before now, there have been measures to ensure that Africans, Nigerians and Africans, do not just apply for visa and get it easily to US. So coming up with this amount is a kind of a restriction and also a kind of discouraging a lot of people from applying for US visa.
All right, from your work with Nigerians, what are the most common reasons that people overstay their visas? And how might this new bond policy change the behavior of prospective travelers?
Well, I don't think it's going to change any behavior because most of these measures have been existing. It's not going to change anything. A lot of Africans will still, continue to stay back, even with all this. They will continue to find ways, to boycott some of these measures that have been put in place. Looking at other countries that have all those kind of measures, like in the Europe and other countries, you can see some of these measures still exist, but you see that Africans and Nigerians still have a way of ensuring that they overstay and creating a lot of problems. In the recent time, I've received a lot of Nigerians from different parts of the world, from India, from other countries, that have overstayed in these countries, and they were forced to return back. Some were carried from their workplace, some were carried along the road, because they refused to comply with the rules of those countries. So you will continue to have this, and you will continue to have a lot of Nigerians being, deported or being forced back as a result of these rules that have been existing. So for me, it's not something new, something that is going to be a kind of Africans will continue to overstay. People will continue to move. A lot of people, because of issues of greener pastures, you cannot rule it out. That find a way to cut corners and stay back in those countries.
Yes, so this policy could require some applicants to deposit as much as $20,000 before receiving a visa. In practical terms, who is most likely to be affected? Could this actually affect, genuine business travelers, tourists, and families? Could this really affect them genuinely?
No. In recent times, people deposit money. I've seen some people that have deposited 15 million and above, and still they were deprived of this visa. And also a lot of people who have not gotten the means to have this kind of amount also are going to be affected. The businessmen, most of them, have what it takes to come up with this kind of amount. But a lot, and one thing I've also found out in this measure that have been put in place is that it's not a guarantee that people will get visa. Look at the clause very well. The policy does not guarantee you that when you deposit such money that you're going to get visa, but also is a kind of a part of the criteria for you to now have a visa. And these are measures to deter people from applying. But they know a lot of people may not have up to this amount, but for those who have it, by the time you deposit the money, it's part of the criteria that will say, okay, this guy is qualified, or this family, they are qualified to apply for such a visa.
Yes, based on statistics, you saw that it actually reduced the number of people applying for visas by a very large amount.
Exactly.
Now, you've been involved. Exactly. So you've been involved in repatriating or in helping repatriated Nigerians settle down, back in the country after they return. Based on your experience, what are the biggest challenges that Nigerians face once they fall out of the legal immigration status? What exactly do they face over there in the United States?
First of all, they face a lot of issues that has to do with social status. They are not being privileged to a lot of things anymore. They live in hiding. They are afraid of arrest, and the kind of job, they now get. Some of them don't have job, so they suffer a lot of setback in terms of survival over there, and also the risk of being repatriated back into the country is also a very big challenge, because some of them don't want to come back, and the system also don't want to absorb them, because some of them have appealed and they have not been able to be granted, any kind of asylum or any kind of permission to stay back in the US. So they face a lot of challenge. They face a lot, risk of arrest. There's no job, hard to survive, and everything. So it's a big problem for those people who have been deprived of renewing their jobs in the US and probably other countries.
Yeah, so for Nigerians who genuinely intend to travel for business or tourism, what steps can they take to, strengthen their visa applications and avoid being viewed as potential overstay risks by immigration authorities? What step exactly should they take?
Yeah, for me, I think what Nigerians should begin to do is begin to, normalize normalize
whatever they are doing in Nigeria, they should be serious about it and also be documenting it appropriately, because most of these countries, they look at history. I remember the first time I applied for European visa, I was denied, and that was just about, and after that, because I've improved on my job and what I'm doing in Nigeria, they have looked at the history, and when I applied again, they granted my visa. And you know that last year I also applied for Schengen visa, and I was given 1 year. When I was going to stay for just about 1 week or 2 weeks. So these people, they are studying, your history. They are looking at your background. They're looking about what you're doing. They want to, they know, they have a way of checking, Nigerians and who is going to stay and who is going to return back to Nigeria. So I would advise Nigerians, whatever you're doing, do it, and then don't create the impression that you're going to, you are going for greener pastures, because they know when people are leaving their jobs in Nigeria and running to Europe or running to US or Canada. When you have a history of someone who is genuinely doing a business in Nigeria and your survival is, above average, when you apply for visa, you will be granted. And they look at your history, you will be granted.
All right. Now, beyond complying with visa conditions, what role should the Nigerian government play in reducing irregular migration? Because we've always had this large influx of people who desire to seek greener pasture, as you've said. What role do you think the Nigerian government should play in reducing the high number?
Especially the government should prioritize the issue of unemployment and create an enabling environment for people, for businesses to thrive. And also look at areas where they can strengthen the structures in the system, so that the structures be able to address the driving factor, because all these push factors as a result of things that have gone wrong in the system. Look at the issue of insecurity. Look at the issue of roads. Look at the issue of lights. These are things that are pushing people out of this country. So I appeal to the system. I appeal to the government to look at some of these things and take them serious and not politicize issues that has to do with Nigerians surviving in the country. Because a country where issues of livelihood is prioritized for citizens, you hardly see them leaving their country. Look at Nigerians traveling, not just US and Canada. Look at other West African countries. People are trooping out, and Nigerians are being deceived, being taken out to and do crime in other countries. So if the government is serious, they will be able to reduce it to the barest minimum by creating the same enabling environment whereby people run to go and see it in other countries, and they see it in Nigeria. So this is my appeal.
In addition to what you're saying the government should do, can you speak to the reintegration of people who have been repatriated back into the country? What more do you think the government should do? Should there be better integration programs for returnees, or do you believe the government is doing enough at this moment?
Part of the problem that we have in reintegration is because of the structures we have on ground. The structures are weak, and the government need to strengthen these structures. Look at our medical sector, the health sector. The structures are weak, because when you talk about reintegration, the reintegration is not about the money they are giving to these people. The reintegration, you give somebody money, how can the system sustain him in this money? Like I said, there are no lights, there are no good roads, the health system is poor, a lot of things are expensive, the economy, things are high in the market. So when government, intervene in these things, the reintegration, will also be very, very sustainable, because some of these things are support systems. Some of these structures on ground that belongs to government and belong to the masses are being made available, are being made, strengthened by government. Once government ensures that all these things are put in place, by the time these people return back, they would like to stay back into the country. You can imagine when people come back, you provide support for them. They are not able to be buying fuel with the support. A liter of fuel is very expensive now. Somebody will use the reintegration money to buy fuel, or you open business. So you can't expect reintegration to be sustainable when these issues are on ground. So these issues must be addressed for government to ensure that reintegration is sustainable and people are ready to stay back. Because most times when people remigrate, it's as a result of the failure of some of the things I've mentioned. So if government can be fully involved and ensure that these things are strengthened, these things are activated, they are working, reintegration will be fine. People would like to come back to Nigeria. Security. I was happy today. I was traveling along the road. I didn't see harassment. Police, they were not, blocking the roads. The road was free from Lagos to Ibadan. So you can see if some of these things are happening, people will be happy. And when they return back, you will see that they will want to stay back. And reintegration is not just about what government has given to them or what government wants to give to them. It's also about what the system has in place and how the environment is enabling for them to try. Thank you.
All right, so still speaking on what the government can do, diplomatically, do you believe that, the Nigerian government can reach out to the U.S., policymakers, to the U.S. government to find a way to mitigate the situation and, possibly reduce this rates for the visa bonds? Do you think that's a possibility in the light of what's happening right now?
Well, like you said, diplomatically, there can be a discussion, but with the kind of U.S. government that I know now, it will be difficult. It has to be an ongoing discussion, something that will take some. They have to convince U.S., because before U.S. comes out with policy, they don't joke with their policy. They will tell you, we are United States, and these are policy. But if government keep on putting pressure on them to see how they can reduce it, they may not scrap it like that. They may reduce it, but depends on the kind of negotiation and who is involved in that negotiation.
All right. So